Let me do that. Okay, I'll do that. Thanks. So we'll have 3 rounds of questions today. I've requested the speakers to limit their answers to kind of within 5 minutes. And after that, we'll open the floor to the audience. We also have a few other individuals who have attended liberal arts institutions here in the audience. So I would like to also hear from some of them. The panel for today will be moderated by Mona Aditya, our colleague. So Mona, I'll hand it over to you. Let's not take up too much time because we're really short on time today.
Thank you. Namaste, everyone. Excuse my background noise. I'm Mona, and I'm assisting Dr. Amina Singh in everything she's trying to do, in short. And I think we have all our panelists. We may be waiting for one of our panelists, but thank you, everyone, for joining. Without delay, because I think most of us are very familiar with the objectives of today's panel. Without delay, I would like to ask all my panelists to introduce themselves briefly, your name, where you are located currently, your college, your undergrad, and what you've been up to in very brief to start with. May I ask Bibhushan to start?
Okay, namaste to everyone. My name is Bibhushan Shakya. I'm a theoretical particle physicist, so not quite your liberal arts person, right? But I did my bachelor's from Stanford University in 2008. And I had a very technical education because I wanted to do physics. So I majored in physics and math, but I also had a very liberal arts education in that I also majored in philosophy. So I wanted a bit of everything. So that's what I did. And then after that, I've just been a research scientist in physics. So I held positions in many different US universities, University of Michigan, University of Cincinnati, University of California, Santa Cruz. Before that, I did my PhD at Cornell in theoretical particle physics. And at the moment, I'm in Germany as a staff scientist at the German National Particle Physics Lab, DAISY. And so that's my background.
Thank you, Bibhushan. I see Ankita. Hi, Ankita. Do you want to go next?
Sure.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ankita Bhetwal. I am currently doing my MBA in nonprofit management in King's College here in Kathmandu. And I graduated in 2018 with a Bachelor of Arts in Politics, Philosophy, and Economics from Asian University for Women, which is in Chittagong, Bangladesh. Since my graduation from AUW, I have been exploring basically just doing digital marketing a little bit of teaching. I took IELTS classes for a few students during the lockdown, and then I got into King's College to do my MBA in nonprofit management. And I'm almost done with my MBA, and currently I'm also working at King's College as a part of the Communiversity team. And also doing a few of the design thinking labs at King's College. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you. And next, Apekshya. Hi, Apekshya. Do you want to go next?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Apekshya Prasai. I did my undergraduate at Bowdoin College in the US and majored in government and legal studies. I worked after that a little bit in research and a nonprofit in Nepal. And then I started my PhD at MIT in political science. I am right now going into my 6th year into the PhD, and I'm currently in Nepal doing research for my.
Thank you, Apekshya. Next, Shubhav, are you around?
Namaste, everyone. Hi, this is Shubhav. I graduated from St. Olaf College in 2021 with a degree in economics and concentration in finance. After that, I worked as a account payable specialist in US CAD for almost like 9 months. Then I came back to Nepal. It's been almost 2-3 weeks, I guess, to explore more business opportunities and help my dad with his business as well. Nothing so far.
And last but not the least, I'm trying to see if I can see Ranjan on my view. Oh, you're there. Ranjan, you want to go next?
Hi everyone, my name is Ranjan Sapkota. I did my undergraduate from Ashoka University, majored in economics, then did a minor in media studies and concentration in math. After graduating, I worked as a data analyst for Mero Shiksha. Then after that, I joined South Asia Watch and Trade Economics and Environment here in Kathmandu as a research associate. Thank you.
Well, so as you can tell, we have a diversity of panelists today. I hope most of you had a chance to look at their profiles. But even if not, you can tell that they've graduated from different countries, India, Bangladesh, and USA. And they belong to different cohorts for their undergraduate. They graduated from 2008 to most recently in 2021. So we really tried to bring in that diversity and different majors. So I really want to thank you, dear panelists, for joining and volunteering to speak to us today. So to begin with, I would like to start with a very basic question around your motivation to join liberal arts college. All of you went to liberal arts program for your undergraduate. Could we start with sharing your motivation around why you ended up where you ended up? What was your motivation behind choosing the program you did? I will just, Apekshya, do you want to start with your sharing, and then we could take turns without me calling out, maybe you could jump in to share. Thank you.
Yeah, that sounds good. So when I picked the colleges I was applying to, I didn't really know a lot about what a liberal arts program really entails, or I didn't really have a lot of information. I think my main motivation was that I didn't want to go to a big school, and I just wanted to go to a small school, and smaller schools tended to be liberal arts colleges. So I ended up applying to liberal arts colleges and got into one. So I just went there. So it wasn't a particularly well-reasoned decision.
I see Bibhushan smiling. Do you want to go?
I was debating whether to speak up or wait for you to call on someone, but either one works. Yeah, so for me, it was a very, I think, well thought out decision, because I've always known that and even when I was applying for colleges, I knew very clearly that I wanted to pursue a career in physics. But at the same time, I was also very clear that I wanted an education that was very broad. So I was looking for institutions that were very top in terms of their physics and math and engineering programs, which I knew I wanted to do. But at the same time, I was also looking for institutions that would allow me to pursue a broader education. So I chose Stanford in particular because they offered a very broad education, as in everybody there has to take a course in writing, a course in humanities, a course in social sciences, course in mathematics, course in science, right? So this is regardless of whatever you choose as your major. Everybody has to do all of these courses. But at the same time, they also allow you to pursue programs in different fields. So you can do multiple majors in more than one field. And so these are both important factors for me. And so I think for me, this was a very conscious checklist that I had in my mind when I was looking for institutions. And that's why I chose where I wanted to go.
I'll go next. Okay. So I think mine would be a mixture of Apekshya and Bibhushanji. I did not really have any idea about what liberal arts education was at that time. I was doing my +2 in science, and I was really not enjoying it at all. It was a lot of pressure, and the situation in Nepal. Even right now, like you get distinction in SLC, and then in +2 you have to do science, and then after that it's either MBBS or engineering, something like that. So that was my path initially. So I did not really have any idea about liberal arts education, or that there were such institutions that could offer me various majors and minors, and we could mix them up and study. So when I came across AUW, the prospectus of AUW, and I saw the list of majors and minors and the different courses and all the extracurricular activities, and that's what attracted me. And I thought it would be my escape from the +2 science and the MBBS. And I told my parents, if I get a scholarship at AUW, you will not stop me. And yeah, so I applied for the scholarship and I got in. And after going there, I did not really have a fixed major in mind before going there as well. I thought I'll just, go there and see what goes on after that. But then I was really fascinated by, like Bibhushan said, we had to take courses in reading, writing, calculus, history, arts. So there was so much variety, and I got really interested. And then slowly I was pulled towards the PPE major, politics, philosophy, economics. So yeah, that's what I ended up doing later. And then I thought a minor related to that would be development studies or gender studies, one of those. And I chose development studies for my minor. So mostly it was trying to escape from here and then also wanting to explore a lot more because I felt very constricted here. So yeah, that was my motivation of joining AUW.
Thank you, Ankita. Ranjan, do you want to go next?
Yes, sure. For me, like I also said, like I kind of had it in my mind that I was going to do economics as my major, but then again, I also did not want to be binded in taking just the courses required for my major. So, but then again, there's also a thing that back in school, everybody like wants to apply abroad, particular to the US. And I also had a similar thinking, but then at the back of my head, I also had a thinking that whichever college gives me the full scholarship, I'm going to go with that. So choosing between colleges was not a problem for me because every college that I applied to had a liberal arts curriculum section. And I also wanted to go to a small college rather than going to a big college. So not much was into taking decision, but then I knew that I had to do economics. And simultaneously, I would love to do other courses. So because of that liberty, yeah, I decided to go to Ashoka University. Yeah.
Thank you, Ranjan. I think we have Shubhav back. Hi. Do you want to?
I'm so sorry. I'm having
No
issues
worries.
with my internet. I don't know. It's been like this the whole day. Hopefully I solved the issue. Hi everyone, sorry about that. So my decision regarding choosing a liberal arts was about how limited the subject choices.
It looks like Shubhav is really having a bad day with internet. Well, we can keep moving. So I sense a lot of, I think a lot of the panelists have used the word variety and choices. And I think as a liberal arts student myself, I think that's always been a point of attraction for me. I'm particularly curious to ask, especially, there will be follow-up questions later from the rest of the audience for sure. I was particularly curious, Ankita and Ranjan, if you'd like to share anything about why you chose the particular countries that you did.
Can I go ahead? For me, it was not rather about country, but basically about what kind of courses I would get. So, and given that, yeah, I got into many colleges in the US also, like with a decent scholarship. But then again, I thought one thing was a little closer to home also. And then I did not really have that kind of thinking, okay, I'll have to go to the US. I genuinely did not have that. But then back in school, everybody wanted to just go to the US, like just get into one college, go to the US. US is the ultimate destination. I did not have that kind of thought in my mind. So, and then I had heard from my counselor, I had heard a lot of good things about Ashoka University. So it was plain and simple for me. Like because everything that I wanted to do was basically available there, and then they provided with enough scholarship to go. I just went. It was a very quick, rapid fire decision for me, not the factor.
Sorry, I'm back again. I hope this time it's done now. Going back to the point, so sorry. With the A levels, so basically we had two categories. Either you're a science person or non-science person. It was either like physics, chemistry, bio, or physics, chemistry, math, or you could do economics, business, accounting, economics, business, math. So it felt so like it was such a limited choice, either science or non-science. So I eventually got the opportunity to go to United World College. Basically, for those of you who don't know about UWC, basically it's a high school for grade 11 and 12, where instead of A levels or +2, you study IB, International Baccalaureate, where students from almost 80 different countries come and study together. So that was my first opportunity at taking subjects that I wanted and not limited to either it has to be science or non-science. So that felt like a fresh air of like freedom. And so I was like, I have to select a college where I can explore more like this, because I didn't know what I exactly wanted to study. So I chose different liberal arts colleges. And also I'm a kind of person who does not like big number of people. I also have migraines, so small lecture halls and a close relationship with professors was something I really valued. So university was a big no-no for me. So decided to go to liberal arts.
Thank you, Shubhav. I hope you can stay with us. I hope the internet supports. And I want to go back to Ankita, if there's anything you'd like to share on anything specific about your country choice or the college choice, because it's so different than what everybody has here on the panel.
Yes. So I happened to come across AW by chance. I wasn't really looking for liberal arts college or any college at that time. Actually, I was enrolled in NAME for pre-MBBS preparation classes. So I happened to come across AW's prospectus by chance through a friend. And I went through the prospectus, and the university's curriculum was one thing, but also 16 different countries, and it was a women's university. It was closer to home. It was basically very easy to convince my parents. So that was one of my very major things of why I chose to apply to AW. And like I said earlier, I did not really want to study MBBS, but my parents wanted me to, and I really wanted an alternative. And I basically showed the prospectus to my parents and gave them all the good things that AUW had to offer. And because it was a women's university and it was closer to home, I don't know why, but I was sure I would get the scholarship. It was just a hunch that I would get a scholarship. And AW has a variety of scholarships. So you can get either a full or you can get 90%, 80%. So even if I had gotten just 50% scholarship, I knew I wanted to choose that rather than MBBS. So because of all these things, I ended up choosing AW. I applied for it, got scholarship, and I ended up going to AW. But like you said, it's quite different, and choosing a liberal arts college in Bangladesh was a very big decision actually at that time, because a lot of people, even my college teachers and principal, everyone was very worried that, because Bangladesh and people view Bangladesh as a very Islamic country where Hindus are not treated well, and that too women might not be treated well. So that was their concern. But then I spoke to a lot of students, Nepali students, who are already studying at AUW, and they did not have any of those issues. They were not scared, especially inside the campus. They felt very safe, and everyone had really good things to say about AUW. And so I finally decided that I really wanted to go there, and I gave up on my MBBS preparation and I got into AUW.
Thank you, Ankita. It's good to hear. Yeah, so I would like to move to the next round of questions, and it's really, I think, at the core of what we might like to hear today, which is, what was your experience like? What did you do, and what was it like broadly? How do you see your experience? Um, Anybody wants to start?
I think you should just
I
call out the
can-
names.
Yeah, or I can
No.
start.
You mean experience after college or during college?
Let's focus on your experience during the college. So a lot of the audience today, some of us are new, some of us are acquainted with liberal arts through somebody who went to the program, and some of us are have some direct experience, right? So what was your experience like? What did you do, and what was it like for you? And we'll go to your experience after your education, after your undergrad. In a bit, we'll get there, but at the moment, just focusing on your experience during your college.
Okay, okay. I had a wonderful experience back in college. Probably I would do it all over again if I get the opportunity, right? But regarding academics and everything, like frankly speaking, I didn't really expect anything before going to college. I just expected that the college environment would be conducive enough to grow myself as a student, grow myself as a researcher later. So the feature of the program, that the kind of liberty they gave to choose the courses regardless of the fact that whichever major you take. Of course, for major courses you had to do mandatory courses, which was, you not get rid of them, you had to do it. But then again, regardless of those mandatory courses, you could take so many other courses, and that really fascinated me. Interdisciplinary module was the most fascinating part, to be honest. And so many of my friends, like, they repeatedly changed major till second year, and then still, like, they extended their 1 year. So one of my friends, like, he started with economics and finance as a major. Then after second semester, he said, no, finance is not my cup of tea. Then he shifted to only, okay, I'm going to do economics. Then he had to do so many other economics courses. Then later on, he realized, okay, it's like, I cannot do it. So he moved to literature. Then after some time, he moved to sociology. Then he ended up doing sociology and anthropology. Right? So that transition to, the liberty for you to choose something that you are very acquainted to, something that you are really passionate to. So it definitely takes some time for you to realize that which subject is really for you, right? So that liberty, if someone gives you, you're going to definitely take it. For academic part, yeah, that was really good. And for me also, like, I was very much no, I didn't really know. Yes, I knew I was going to do economics, but then, like, besides that, if I have to choose concentration minor and everything, like, what am I going to do, right? So I chose like multiple subjects, and then finally did some media studies minor, concentration math and all. So there were plenty of students who chose master's courses. You could literally write to the professor, and I'm doing course, I want to do on some other school bag. It was that easy for you to take different kind of courses. So in terms of academics, like, it was wonderful. Like, the kind of liberty they gave us to choose major, and for me to like, time that flexibility pretty well to me. So, and it worked pretty well for me. Of course, courses, challenging courses and everything, the time pressure, the assignment pressure, of course it will happen to everybody. But then again, as a whole, and I really enjoyed my time there, both academics way and both in terms of athletics way, both in terms of every other socialized way, every other facet.
Thank you, Ranjan. Bibhushan, do you want to go next? And just for heads up, Ranjan, your internet may be, we might be struggling with your internet. So I'll drop a message if, in case anybody is in case in case anybody's internet does not look like doing well, I'll message you, and then probably you can turn your video off in that case, but I'll let you know. Bibhushan next. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I want to emphasize this one particular point that Ranjan brought up, which is that the essence of a liberal arts education is that it's very broad, right? And it gives you a lot of freedom in terms of what kind of education you want, which means that you can choose from a lot of different courses. And so for someone who thrives on this kind of freedom, this kind of education would be very great. And for me, this was great for this exact reason, that I could choose from a lot of options and choose what I wanted to learn and in what order. And so this comes also with the added responsibility or burden or pressure that you do something that is maybe very different from a standard education, where you're just given a list of courses you have to take in some particular order, and then you don't need to think about how you want to go about it, right? So this is very different, where you can sort of create your own program, combine different courses in the way that you want, and combine them together. So for me, this was really great, and I got a lot out of it because I could change as I discovered new things, and I could change my program according to what my interests were and how they were changing. So so I think that was the most important part, and for that reason, this was very good. And usually the worry with that is when you have so much freedom, then you sort of lose the depth that you would get from a standard track of completing a major, right? And if you want to maintain both the breadth and the depth of your education, then this definitely requires you to work more than you would normally work. So this is extra work for the student, but this is something that maybe not all students would appreciate, but for someone who really wants to get a broad education and wants to do a lot of different things, I think this is something that is accepted as part of the package. And if you're okay with taking that extra responsibility and doing the extra work, then this combination can be very good. And for me, this was how it was.
Thank you, Bibhushan. As we proceed, I would also like to ask the panelists to add how you balanced, as in how your program also balanced between the, broad base that you got. What did you do for your foundational courses, but also without getting into too many details, maybe give a preview of the kinds of range of classes that you took. And then also, because Bibhushan, you did a triple major, right? So that's very difficult, but also it's also something that you get because you went to liberal arts college, you were able to choose all. So I guess my request to panelists now is also to give a preview of that experience that you got, broad-based experience, but also having the opportunity to kind of specialize. Maybe Bibhushan, do you want to add a little bit to that?
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Thanks for bringing that up. So for me, my program was structured such that when you get to Stanford, everybody, like I said, right, needs to take at least a math course, at least a writing course, a social sciences course, a humanities course, and a science course in their first year. And by the end of their first year, they have to declare their major. So you can do this. By the end of your first year, you have to have picked something as your major. So that this is just to ensure that someone's not completely lost and gone off the tracks, and they're at least on track to get a degree in some particular discipline. But then you are allowed to change your major even after your first year, up to, I think, the first semester of your third year. So this is a lot of freedom, right? So this was designed so that by the end of your first year, you had a very broad exposure to all kinds of courses. At the end of the first year, you have to be on track for some particular major. But then after that, you can keep exploring, and up until the first semester of your third year, you can choose what your major is. And I think each major comes with a set of required courses. So by the end of your first year, when you choose your major, you are assigned a mentor, a professor, who is in charge of discussing these things with you, just to make sure that you're on track to satisfy all the requirements of that particular major. So this is to make sure that you are not completely lost, and someone is keeping an eye on you and making sure you're making progress in what particular discipline. And so for me, the way it turned out was that I took all these courses. I took some engineering courses. I took a lot of science courses because I knew I was going to major in a technical subject. So I knew I wanted to do physics. So right after I got to college, I declared physics as my major. But at Stanford, you're allowed to declare multiple majors. So by the end of my first year, I'd also declared actually computer and electrical engineering as my second major. And in my second year, I was taking a lot of engineering courses and a lot of science courses. At the same time, also a lot of non-technical courses, especially in philosophy. And so in my second year, I realized that engineering was really not for me. I wasn't really interested in that kind of technical career. I was more interested in more fundamental questions, right? So physics was more my cup of tea. And so I dropped my computer and electrical engineering major. And I realized that opened up a lot of space in my schedule, so I could declare a second major. So I chose mathematics as my second major. And so my education after that was very technical, a lot of math, a lot of physics. But at the same time, philosophy was something that I was very, very interested in. So I was already taking a lot of courses in philosophy because I just loved reading these books and learning about, right, just the way people think about different things and just how ideas drive everything. And because I was taking so many philosophy courses, I eventually decided that I would also declare a major in philosophy. And I had to do a lot of calculations to make sure I could fit all 3 programs into 4 years. And so this required really packing every semester to as much as it can pack. So taking the maximum number of allowed courses and whatnot. But because I wanted all 3, eventually I think I declared philosophy as a major at the beginning of my 3rd year. So every year I declared a major, and I actually dropped a major in my 2nd year and switched to a different track, right? So these were all made possible by the flexibility of the program and the structure of the program. And so this is how my particular experience went.
Thank you for the addition. I would now like to ask, I see on my screen, Ankita.
Yeah, so it's kind of similar to Bibhushanji's program. The structure was similar at UW as well. So the first year that you go in, you have to take courses in writing. So 2 writing seminars are compulsory, and a reading course is compulsory, calculus and history. So these were the first courses that you had to take when you went to the university. And then there are core courses based on what major you declare. I first declared Asian Studies as my major when I was in my first year, the end of first year. And then I realized I also really liked reading philosophy and politics. I could relate the 2 quite well. And the other major was PPE if I wanted to do politics and philosophy. So I changed from Asian Studies to PPE major at the end of first year. So yeah, based on that, so even in PPE, you had to take certain compulsory courses on politics, like the foundation courses for politics, foundation courses for philosophy, and some major courses for economics as well. And besides that, we could explore just about anything that was offered during that time, especially during the summer time. The courses were offered for a very short time, but there were a variety of courses, and visiting professors were allowed to take courses during the summer. So once I took a class on mythology in one summer, and in one summer I took a class on Islam, women, and politics. And in one of the summers, I took a course on relating politics and philosophy. So not just political science, but in very different ways. So it was very interesting, and that liberty to choose and explore and just have fun basically while you're doing your major courses. And you have this one course where you just go to class and discuss about something that's completely unrelated to your major. It just helps you open up your mind. I think gives a lot of space for discussions, where I really also like that part about AUW, maybe not just AUW, but any other liberal arts program, that there are places, it gives you an open space where you can discuss without having to agree or disagree or go into a conclusion of a certain topic. So that was very new for me, because when we're here, when I was here in +2, it was just basic discussions on, not really even discussions, just lectures on what's there in the book and what we had to read, learn, and then write it on the exam paper. So getting to just have a course where you get graded based on your class participation, where you get graded based on your ideas of how you express it on a certain topic, and you get to do your own research about certain things if you agree or disagree on a topic. So that was very interesting to me. So and also at AUW, as soon as you enter, the first few things that you hear are critical thinking and plagiarism. So those are the two things that we got fed as soon as we got into AUW. So we were told that everything that you do from now on has to be, through the critical thinking lens. So no matter what you read, no matter what you discuss, what you see, ask questions and talk to each other, talk to us, come to professors, or just explore as much as you can, so you can develop critical thinking. And I think that was amazing. And it felt very liberating to me at that time. And the other thing was plagiarism, which I still am very thankful for, because I have seen a few students here in Nepal, in colleges in Nepal, who will just do research and not care about plagiarism. And it really shocks me right now. But then it was a thing that we were taught from the very beginning. So these were a few things that stood out as soon as I got into AW and started the program. But yeah, my experience was enhanced because of those courses that were not related to my major, and we could just have fun basically while studying.
Thank you,
so next.
Ankita. Apekshya.
Yeah. I had a really good experience. I really enjoyed my time in undergrad, and other than the flexibility, which I also appreciate a lot, there are a couple of other things that made the experience really worthwhile for me. One was just how close-knit the student community was, and students itself were a very huge support system for each other. We lived in dorms together, which made a huge difference. The other was just the access to faculty, which was quite remarkable. And like, as someone who's now doing a PhD and training to be a faculty, and as a teaching assistant, I see how classes are run in a bigger university. Like, I appreciate that even more, because like, I used to have lunch with my advisor like every few days, and people would invite us over to their homes, and it was just a very very welcoming environment. And there was a huge emphasis on mentorship, which made it much easier to transition, even though the learning curve was quite steep when I first went in. And I think that kind of also played into my trying to balance the depth and the breadth. So for us, there were like 9 or 10 requirements that we had to fulfill over 4 years, including like performing arts, natural sciences, math, like there was a whole list. So I kind of focused on finishing all of it in my first 2 years. And then I used study abroad as an opportunity to spend a whole year at a place where I could only study political science and kind of go in depth in topics that I was interested in. And then because you work so closely with your advisors, kind of if they're on board with it, it's not particularly hard to, make that kind of thing happen. So that was one way that I was able to kind of build the base for my PhD and get concrete research skills, even though there was still a lot of breadth you had to cover in the program. The other was research opportunities. So there was a lot of opportunities to do research with faculty where I was. So I was able to do research on the same topic. So my PhD is on women in rebel groups. So I did my research. I did a whole summer of research under the mentorship of one of my advisors my 3rd year. And then my last year, I was able to do an honors thesis on the same topic with one of the same professors. So, and then she hired me as a research assistant the summer after. So I got to do more research. So, so working very closely with faculty was really important in being able to like navigate the breadth depth system for me. And also what really made my experience really good. And I'm still very close to all of them. They're still like my, really good mentors. Like I go back. So I think a combination of study abroad, like mentorship, research opportunities, and also internship opportunities. So the school had lots of funds to do all kinds of internships during the summer. So I was able to spend multiple summers in Nepal working in NGOs and exploring other sectors, which also like helped me decide that I wanted to do the academic route over the NGO route. So I think there were a lot of opportunities that kind of worked well with the flexibility of the program to kind of hone your own more specialized like path.
Thank you, Apekshya. It's really helpful to hear a broad range of, ideas and about your experience there with included your extracurriculars and the support system out there. Next, Shubhav, if we have you around, maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on how a small college experience with liberal arts, that combination, how it worked for you.
Sounds good. I think I'll keep my video off. I don't know if my problem is fixed. So I'd like to talk more on the three support networks that I had during my college experience that really made me feel secure about my graduation, about my post-graduation, and my time in St. Olaf, I guess. But first of all, about the advisor thing. During I think it was during the first week, we're given an advisor. It was random, but the advisor, I worked with her for almost a year, and she helped me decide what major I wanted, or like how to manage my courses, what I could do. And then she also helped me when usually people do their abroad studies. So once I declared my major, I selected my advisor, which was very specific to my economics and finance. So I think that was something that was really helpful, because at first we didn't know anything. So there was a random advisor assigned to you. And then after you're certain, then you can change your advisor. So that was something that I really liked about our college. The other thing that I wanted to talk today was about a program called CURI. It's called Collaborative Undergraduate Research and Inquiry. So it was offered for almost every academic disciplines, and it was provided to gain an in-depth understanding of a particular subject while working closely with one of the St. Olaf faculty. So for almost 3 months, not 3 months, 2 months, you were with a professor, 5 students, 1 professors, working on a project that our professor decided, and they also paid us for that research. So it was 2 months research and then 1 month of providing your results. So I think that was really helpful and gave me an experience to see how a research paper would look like with a professor. The other thing was we had a dedicated center who supported us. It was called Piper Center, who supported us through our job applications and even our resumes. So since it was such a close-knit community, everyone in the office knew us, and they knew our strength, they knew our weaknesses, they knew like what our like future goals were, what we were trying to achieve. So they would, suggest us companies, or like they would be like, you should study these subjects, and these subjects are good for your further education. So that support system was really, really nice for us, because they would help you with your CV, your job applications, and they would also like help you decide what subjects would be really good for PhD level applications and stuff. So the third thing that I really felt a close-knit community helped was we had a very strong alumni network, and definitely stems from the close-knit fact. As far as I know, music students would often go to like prestigious places like New York Orchestra Hall and like Sydney Opera House, and this was all possible through the alumni network. They also, in my field, at least in economics and finance, some of the alums used to bring CPT opportunities. CPT means curricular practical training. So it's only specific to your courses. So for my accounting class, one of the alums brought QuickBooks. It's a software that most businesses use for accounting. So I had almost 2 months experience with using that software, and was really helpful when I applied for jobs later, because I could mention that I did CPT on QuickBook, so it was really helpful. And also for my marketing class, one of the alums who started startup companies came to us and asked us to do a 12-page industry analysis and social media marketing for his company. So a lot of opportunities were provided to us, and most of them was through our alumni, or was like a close relationship between our professors. Some of them live really close by the college, so sometimes we even visit them during summer, so it was really nice.
Thank you, Shubhav. And now I would like to, so on Shubhav's response, I'm glad to hear the word alumni affairs or alumni system. And I think it's been something I've worked on, and at liberal arts colleges, it's a very common thing to see a very strong alumni support system as well, for sure. And I do have a lot of curiosities myself, but I'll hold on to them and keep the conversation flowing towards the final round of questions that I have, which is, now that we've learned about some of your experience, how do you compare, or how do you reflect on the value of what you got as a liberal arts student? You could share anything about what you've been doing more recently, how you've been applying your education experience to what you're doing today, or anything you might have to share as we think about setting up University of Nepal. So for this, I would like to ask Ankita to start with.
Thank you. While I was just brainstorming after I got the questions, the first things that came to my mind was these 4 words that I think were very important to me and have stayed with me since I started my education at UoNDB. So it was listen, share, be aware, and empathize. So these are the things that UoNDB instills on us as core values in their students, through the program, through the support that we receive from our faculty, through our friends, the circle that we have there, and through all the extracurricular activities and all the discussions around the various topics that we can have in and outside of classes. So, and I feel like these are the values that have stayed with me and helped me in every stage of my life since then. So being aware about the people in front of me, being aware about the situation, empathizing, and just listening and sharing my experiences. This has been very important and has come in handy almost everywhere. So right now I'm doing my MBA in nonprofit management. And these are, because the values aligned in this program as well, that is also one of the reasons why I pursued an MBA here at King's College in this program specifically. So even the nonprofit program, it tries to enrich the similar values. So that was one of the things. And like the others also shared, a very important factor besides having the liberty to choose different faculties and learn and read about so many different things in the program, definitely the support that we got from our professors was one of the main reasons why we could do so well in what we did. So even at King's College right now, because the classroom size is quite small, we get the same kind of support from our professors and our TAs that I used to get at UoNDB. So I think maintaining a small class size was one of, UoNDB does that very consciously. So every class only had about, maximum I had in the class was 25 students. And that was also considered like a lot. The ratio was considered a lot at that time. So that was one of the major factors, I think, that really helped us learn and enrich ourselves. Faculty being so open and always so welcoming, and we could like others also shared, we also had advisors at every stage of our learning process, and not just advisors for our courses, but we had a separate advisor that we could choose. So one advisor we had from the department or from the major that we took, and one other advisor was either we could do it with the same person, or we could choose our own faculty who we felt the most comfortable with sharing our personal side as well, so that they helped us cope with everything that we were doing at that time and help us plan our career ahead and all of that. So that was also very important, and I think very important anywhere in any kind of education that we do right now. So and that's there. And so one of the since everyone was sharing and I was also reflecting back more, one of the cons, I would say, of liberal arts education that we usually hear, because of all the choices that we have and the liberty to do all these various courses. And I was even talking to other friends of mine from UW, and that phrase that hits us really hard every time is the jack of all trades and master of none for liberal arts education all the time. And we were discussing how that is, it's kind of hurtful to us, because we get so much from the program, in not just academically, but as a person, the growth that we see in ourselves, and the life skills that we can apply later. So my confidence boosted so much after going to UW. I feel like I'm a very good communicator, both in writing and speaking, because of the way the courses were designed at UW and all the extracurricular activities that we got to do there. And like I said earlier about being empathetic, that I think is very important, especially in today's age. So all these things that we cannot really point out from an academic side, but it's there, it comes to you once you're done with your education and you realize how much you've gained from that. So these are the few things that I think were very important to me. And when I reflect back on the education that I got, it's not just the academics, it's the overall shaping of a human being right now. So AW really focuses on, change makers and being leaders. So it doesn't really have to be a leader of an organization or a country, but just a person who has the leadership skills and has the skills to come together with a group of people to do something for their own community. So whether it's your own country or your small community or anywhere in the world that you are. So these are the few things that I think have stayed with me and will stay with me as as I go in life, no matter what career I choose in the future. So yeah, I'm sorry, did I answer your question? Is there something more specific that you wanted?
No, that's really great. I'm super glad to hear the keywords, keep growing human beings and leaders, right? So for our next panelists, I would definitely encourage you to also add anything that you don't see as positive, anything critical, and also in perspective, with perspectives that we are also looking for recommendations or any considerations for in planning for Nepal and Nepali students. We'll have more time later as well for such questions from the audience, but yeah, let's move with Shubhav next on your reflections and recommendations.
Hi. I wouldn't really say there are like real pros and cons. I think the jack of trades is something that's that I heard from others as well, but it really depends on the person, I guess, because it depends if you like a really close-knit community, but not so small that everybody knows everyone, but not too big that nobody knows anyone kind of thing. So it really depends on the person. Do you really need a professor to be there for you, or like you're okay with lecture halls? So it really depends on the person more. But what I have noticed for Nepal and US is liberal arts is actually very expensive program. Almost the average you have to pay per year is almost like $65,000 to $70,000. So that's, and the reason, I think one of the biggest reason for that is because of this broad learning experience. So you need to have experts on like various fields. So I'm really, I don't know how, I don't exactly know what planning board is like agendas and plans are, but for right now it feels to me like liberal arts really isn't that inclusive to everyone. There's definitely like scholarships and everything, but just based on how many experts you might need to hire for such a broad curriculum, I think it's going to be expensive. But yeah, I think for me as a person, I really think it really depends on what you like and not. There is not real pros and cons, I believe.
That sounds good. On just a lighter note, such conversations will also be are also intended to be our relationship starters. So hope in the coming days we can rely on the emerging experts like some of you on the panel today. So next, Ranjan, I think we have you back. So we're talking about our reflections and anything you might want us to have as considerations.
Regarding reflections, I kind of had a good time when I shifted from college in work. Many of the things that I learned is literally reflected at work also, which is something not used to for many people. And another thing was that liberal arts education kind of, it trains you to think beyond the narrow confines of just your major. So maybe because of that also, like at work also, like you had a broader perspective on everything. You would want to know more about other discipline as well. Like suppose you work on data, like you wanna see it from different perspective, different lens as well, right? So yeah, that really helped a lot. We had back in college, we had like career development committee and everything. So they kept us soothing with the trends and deadlines of companies. They even gave us mock interviews and all. So hopefully, like if a University of Nepal comes into fruition, maybe those kind of things will be taken care of. That's, I think, really, really important, because every time they gave CV collaborator workshops, like it really meant a lot to students, because like we literally had no idea how we were supposed to shape it then. And I didn't even have an idea that, okay, your CV, it would be good if you keep your CV within 1 page length. I had no idea. I used to go like 3 pages and all. And now I kind of had a soothing idea about it. So thanks to college and career development community for that. Regarding recommendations, I genuinely think that in a setting like Nepal, it's going to be quite hard, quite difficult to set up such culture, liberal arts culture, because I think most of the population in Nepal, like they're a little bit traditional, and then they still think that, okay, it's arts, and then they're like, oh, it's arts. So that kind of tone change will be very frequent for you guys, I think so. So I don't know how that predicament can be solved. Maybe awareness about particular cases and everything, but I think it's going to be challenging. Other thing is that please do not, if University of Nepal happens to fruition, then please do not compromise on what kind of courses a student can take. And above all, professors should be the one to design the course structure of every courses, rather than having the university setting it up for the professor. It's like, if the professor does not have the liberty, full 100% effort in designing the course, there's no point, and I feel so. And then if the classes go as per the professor's demand, then like classes and students can also learn accordingly. An education environment should be set up in such a way that it promotes research culture and more like a practical learning. I think so that's very important, I think. Another thing is like, basically liberal arts, the concept of liberal arts is basically like widely popular in Western nation, right? So it's we also need to realize, it's pertinent to realize that we it's not that we have to copy everything about them, like we take good things from them, right? So, but then I feel like international standards education should be implemented, but then in a very localized manner, like suiting, you know, like different cultures or different people from different countries as well. And the most important thing about opening a liberal arts university would be like, we need to be as far away as possible from political drama. Like it's very known in Nepalese universities. It's not a you know rocket science to understand that so much of politics is involved in university decisions, university admissions and everything, right? So I think that should not be there, because as far as I think, I strongly believe that you know universities should be an educational hub for students, rather than you know being a platform for political drama. So if we can avoid that, then like half of our problem would be gone. I think that's the thing. Because back in our university, our vice chancellor, he used to write a lot against the Modi government, because that time Modi government had a very autocratic stance against the people. And if during elections time, you would like bring out agendas which can bring a turmoil among Hindu nationalists and Muslim nationalists. So he wrote a lot of things about that. Then the Modi government started pressurizing him. Like there were so many things. Because of that, like later on he had to resign. So those kind of phenomena, because he was very liked by the students, right? So it was. You guys might have heard of it as well, because it happened recently only. So if those kind of things can be avoided, then half of the problem would be solved. Because I'm pretty sure regarding the courses and course structure, I'm pretty sure it's going to be brilliant, I think. At the end of the day, when that kind of thing, like a professor is dropped because of a political drama, if that kind of things keeps on happening, it's not the loss of the institution, but it's a big loss to the students, to be honest, because they would want to have experts who are very good and all, right? So, and then it would be really good if the university is largely a philanthropic effort, so that everybody has its say, and then like less political drama in it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ranjan. A lot of valuable insights in there. Since we're cutting over, we've already crossed the first hour. Just passing this on directly to Apekshya, and then we'll ask Bibhushan Dai to jump in directly after Apekshya.
Thanks. Okay, I'll try to keep this short. I agree with everything that has already been said. And I think one of the things that was most valuable for me in my liberal arts education was exposure, whether it is to like different experiences or different substantive courses or people, and because it kind of forced everyone to take a gender class or a race class, or something that makes you more engaged with society and makes you a more educated citizen. But at the same time, I think, as Ranjan said, I don't know how you would balance between cultivating students who are socially and politically engaged without it turning into party associations forming within the university, as it does in like most universities in Nepal. So I think that's a big problem that is specific to this kind of context, and particularly because this is going to be a public university. So that's a especially big problem for this model, because most liberal arts schools tend to be private and elite. So it tends to be a little different and economically independent. And I think in terms of considerations and things that's worth thinking about, I see University of Nepal as an intervention into the educational and labor sector. And I'm sure, all of you who decided that this should exist have reasons for why it should exist. So more than just sort of thinking of the pros and cons of liberal arts in vacuum, like I'm curious to know like what you think is the student need that you are fulfilling by providing this curriculum, and what is the demand on the employer side that you are responding to by developing graduates with a certain skill set. Because unless you are fulfilling a need and also responding to a demand, I'm not sure who you're trying to attract and what problem we're trying to solve by creating this university. So I think I would like to hear more on that from people who are involved.
Okay, I think I'm the last one to go up. So I think we've hit on all the keywords that need to be said, but just to emphasize the main ones, right? So the main point of a liberal arts education is really like people said, making better humans. And there's this saying that I really like, which is particularly applicable to my field, which is that, which goes like, a physicist does not really need philosophy, and a philosopher doesn't really need physics, but a human needs both, right? And this is really, you would be amazed at how often a physicist needs to be a human more before he needs to be a physicist. Like in my field of research, right, I work with a lot of different people from all over the world, and they come from all kinds of educational backgrounds. And it's very obvious that the ones who've had a more sort of a liberal arts education, a broader education, or a more inclusive education compared to someone who's had a very technical training is very different in terms of being better communicators, being better writers, just being able to think broadly about what it is that they're doing and why they're doing it, being able to communicate these things efficiently with other people. So all of these aspects, someone who's had a broader education is really much better at, and this is something that benefits them even as professionals greatly in whatever they do. In particular in the field that I've been active in and I work in. So I think that's the biggest pro of getting a liberal arts education. The biggest con, as people said, right, is it's less structured. And when people see liberal arts, the emphasis is always on arts, and arts is taken to be the opposite of science. And so that's why people get branded as jack of all trades, master of none, or somehow their education is weaker in the sense that the breadth they got somehow compromised the depth in training that they would have otherwise gotten. So the biggest con of setting up an institution like this is to make sure that this doesn't happen, right? The emphasis should be on liberal rather than arts. It's a liberal education where people get a broader education, get exposed to more ideas, have more freedom in designing their programs, but that does not necessarily mean that the quality of their education is worse in some sense. And so this is tricky because this requires a lot of work in terms of planning the program. So it's more emphasis on the university, on the kind of people they hire. Like it was mentioned, right? This becomes more expensive because you need to make sure you have a better quality of educators across a broad range of disciplines. But it's also a bigger burden on students because they somehow need to find their own path and at the same time make sure that the quality of their education is not subpar. Again, this is not for everyone, so not every student will enjoy this, but I would think that there's a big group of people also in Nepal, as in everywhere else in the world, where they really would benefit from this kind of education rather than just something that's closer to a vocational program. What else? I think I forgot the questions already because we touched on so many different things.
I think that's great, Bibhushan Bhai. I would like to actually now hand over back to Amina Devi for further questions from the audience and Amina Devi. And you have more to share for sure, dear panelists, but thank you for answering my questions. And yeah, Amina Devi.
Thank you so much, Mona, and thank you so much to all the panelists. This was such a fascinating conversation to listen to, and I'm so impressed by how articulate and how thoughtful and how reflective you were in responding to all these questions. And I think that's a testimony to the quality of education you received, I think. So fantastic job, all of you. I have a lot of questions, but I would like this opportunity to actually hear more from the audience, because I think I'll probably reach out to you individually in the future. But before we go to the questions to the panelists, I know there are a few individuals in our audience that have also attended a liberal arts program. And I would like to give the opportunity to them, if anyone in the audience would also like to share their reflections or add any comments or any thoughts or any insights that they've had based on their experience. So I'd like to open to the floor to, I know there, I had invited a few, I'm trying to look. Is there anyone who would like to volunteer to share their experience from the audience? Anusha ji, yes. Yeah, could you, while you speak, could you please briefly give your introduction, where you went to school, and then share anything you would like to share? Thanks.
Thank you. I'm Anusha. I I graduated last year from Beloit College, which is in Wisconsin, United States. I had a double degree in biology and anthropology, which specifically it was ecology, evolutionary, and behavioral biology and anthropology. And right now I'm working in Nepal in an organization called Nepal Institute of Development Studies. Its primary works on social issues like labor migration. And before that, I held internships in like conservation organizations, both in the US and here in Nepal as well. Regarding this, I agree with everyone else. I think everyone has hit on all those topics. One thing is like, if someone is not sure about what they want to do, or like have an idea but still want to explore, liberal arts is probably the best, because I wanted to be a biochemistry major, but then I took biology classes, I took chemistry classes, I did not like chemistry. And later on, I got to take more biology classes, and I always liked both sciences and the arts, and I never, if I had stayed in Nepal or gone to some other country, I would have to choose between one, and I did not want to do that. So I took a lot of courses, and then I ultimately landed on ecology, evolutionary, and behavioral biology, and anthropology, which is both like broad subjects, but I took a lot of classes on it. And even right now, I'm exploring what I want to do after this. Like, I worked on conservation sector, and I'm working now in the social sector. So I could use both of my majors, even though they're drastically different. I don't think I would have done it if I had studied somewhere else. And one thing is, I also took like other classes which are not even related. Like, I took a piano class in my last semester, which was like totally unexpected. And now I'm taking piano classes as a hobby, and I don't need it for my biology or my anthropology class, but it has made me a better person. Like, I discovered a hobby. It was just a random class I chose, but I still liked it. And there were some courses I did not like at all, which was fine because it was just one class. And that was a really good experience. And another thing I liked was how the faculty was always involved in what I wanted to do. And like, when I had presented my research in a conference, my professor was very involved in my presentation. And I don't think, like, if in Nepal, professors are that much involved in students' like research or other ventures other than like just going to class and teaching. So if the University of Nepal is formed, one of the main things is like professors needs to be fully committed to the students and not just go to a class, take a class and bye. You know, that is not going to work. I think like they need like actual teaching abilities as well as mentoring abilities. And I don't think just being an expert on their subject matter is going to be enough. And I think they would need like more like education-based or like mentoring-based experience, and also commitment and willingness to do that. And yeah, that is my experience and suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anushaji. I think you've kind of re-emphasized some of the points that I've made. And one of the aspects that has come across quite clearly is student engagement, not just from the faculty, but from other kinds of support networks as well. And that point is well taken. Thank you so much, Anusha, for sharing. Now we open the floor for questions to the panel. If you have a question, you may raise your hand, and we will I will call out those who have raised their hands, or you could type your question into the chat box. We already have one question from Peter, so I'm going to read out the questions. And since we have 5 panelists, I'm just going to leave it up to the panelists to decide whether they want to respond to the question. So I'm not going to kind of direct who's going to answer it. So please feel free to just raise your hand and let us know who would like to answer this question. So Peter's question is, what would it have taken for you to stay in Nepal to complete undergraduate studies? Were you actively encouraged by your family, counselors, and peers to study abroad? Bibhushan ji, yeah.
This is a tricky question and probably goes to the heart of the matter, right? So I guess there are two aspects to the first question. One is the sort of more education quality question, and the other is more personal preferences, right? And it's not clear where one becomes more important than the other, because even in the US, you see a lot of the times that people would rather go to a university at the opposite end of the country than go to the one that's next door. And this mainly has to do with the fact that they would like to explore a new part of the world, new cultures, get away from their family, see something different. And I think especially for people in Nepal, this is always a big draw when they apply to places like the US or go to Europe or Australia. Not only is it because they're trying to get a better quality education, but a lot of times it's also because they want to get away from their families, from the society they've grown up in, live in a different part of the world, learn new things, explore new possibilities. And I think that is a huge draw for most students in Nepal. And for that reason, they would always want to go abroad if they have the chance rather than stay in Nepal, even if the quality of education they're getting is on par. As for the second part of the question, which is whether family or society actually push them to go abroad rather than stay back, I think there it's more clear that the quality of education, or not even the quality of education, but the perceived quality of education, right, is better abroad. So everyone thinks that if you go abroad, go to the US, you get a better education, you're more marketable, you're likely to land a better job, either abroad or when you come back to Nepal. And so I think, there are both personal and quality of education questions when it comes to this. And so for the first part, I guess, if you have a liberal arts education program or any program in Nepal where it's clear that the quality of education is on par with something that you would get abroad, that would address the first part. And of course, you have to make sure that this is also something that some people perceive as guaranteeing them better professional prospects once they graduate, right? So I think that's the biggest part of having an educational institution, the perceived quality of education and the prospects of getting employed afterwards. Then there's also the personal aspect where if you want to encourage people to stay in Nepal rather than go abroad, then you somehow have to offer them personal experiences that are different from what they experience every day. Right? So whether this is from some possibilities for spending some semester abroad or doing some kind of internship in a different place, something of this sort, I think it would be very attractive to students.
Thank you, Bibhushan. Yeah, Ranjan.
Yeah, I fully agree with Bibhushan regarding the quality of education and being personal. Besides those things, I think there are a few things that really matters. One of them is, when you really try to enroll into so many Nepalese universities here, like 2-3 Nepalese universities in Kathmandu or colleges, there's so many simple paperworks also takes a lot of time for you to process, like the deadline has already passed, but then like you still don't have the required documents, despite the very fact that you have already done everything asked by the committee, right? So that's the kind of lagging behind so many deadlines and all, not being punctual enough. Look, I'm not criticizing anybody, I'm not criticizing the university. I genuinely like to be honest, but like there are a few things that really frustrates you. And thinking only makes you think that I would really not want to go through this hassle. I would rather apply abroad to a good university. On top of that, I'm getting a really good quality education, and then on top of that, I have an interdisciplinary model which lets me explore my major, minor, concentration, everything, right? So when you have those kind of freedom, then like why would you go for places where you actually, just for processing a document, it takes so much time, right? Another thing is that you have no idea when your results going to come. Like this has been faced by so many students here. So many of my friends who did undergrad in Nepal, basically the 4th year students, their results are, some of them, I think their results are yet to come, like one or two courses, one whole semester. Those are the things. Like, yeah, of course, COVID also like have had an impact, but then like why did I get my degree already? Why did I get my marks already, transcript already? And then why can't the universities here do the same, right? So it's like, you can't really make that excuse there also. So that also frustrates a student a lot. On top of that, we will be only 18, 17, 18, right? So we don't have that, like patience at that time. You just grow out of adolescence age, and then you like jump into adult world, and then you are expected to do everything by yourself, right? That's really not fair, to be very honest. And then on top of that, you have this system whereby everything lags around, right? So that really frustrates you. And then some people think, oh, I might as well just apply, right? And the third thing is that the kind of rat race we have here about MBBS and joining Pulchok or joining engineering campuses and all, that kind of rat race has to stop. If you're going to a university to study, and then like for that particular, to get into that particular university also, you delve a lot around your grades and everything, rather than having holistic approach of admissions. So I think that's, of course, like few universities and all, you have to take entrance test, you have to like screen through the process, that's fine, but the way you screen should matter, right? It should not just be about how you do in an entrance test, right? So that's another thing. And another thing, third thing is like close research opportunities, which really lacks in Nepal, and like any of the universities hardly, like even if like a few people get in, like they have to go through so much of hassles and trouble just to enhance your potential, or just to apply somewhere, right? So if you close research opportunities, especially with professors who have done research in that particular field, right? So that might be a matter of interest for so many students. That's why they might apply abroad also, and that's why they might not want to stay, right? Another thing is like we don't have interdisciplinary approach, which makes a lot of difference. That's the whole essence. That's why we join liberal arts universities. So yeah, these are the few things that really matter while deciding between colleges in Nepal and abroad. And regarding the second question, like did family or peers encouraged, counselors encouraged? Yes, counselors definitely encouraged me just to explore the option. Not that you have to go abroad, but then like explore your option. Wherever you get in, wherever the kind of scholarship you get in, let's just reflect on your options and then just decide after that. So that's what he told me. And then regarding the if University of Nepal provides that kind of opportunities that they have deemed to, then it would be a really good place for many parents, many students who do not want to go abroad for studies, because one, it's going to be really expensive and not everyone gets a scholarship. So another thing is that so many parents, they don't think that their child is mature enough to venture into a different country, venture into a different world where you might have some sort of cultural shock. So in my university, African students and some French students, they had a really hard time coping up with the Indian kind of culture. Like so many things happening around in the college, and first year you are just boomed into it, you're just like 17, 18, and then you are expected to do everything. You're expected to manage courses, you're expected to manage outside works and all, right? So for those people who are really alarmed, for parents who are really alarmed that okay, they don't want to send their child abroad, if University of Nepal turns out to be what it deems to be, like it's going to be really good for them. And then third thing is like job opportunities also, people look a lot, because Nepal basically, if you look at the unemployment graph trends of Nepal, it's really sad. Like genuinely, it's so sad. So I think these are the things that might matter. So I hope that I answered Peter's question. Thank you.
Thank you, Shubhav. Let's see your hand.
I think most of the panelists have talked about the technical side of it. I also like to talk about the psychological side of it. One of the biggest thing I thought was the peer pressure about going abroad. It's like almost every friend, like everyone or very close with, are almost going abroad for studies. So it gives you an idea that you also have to go abroad. So I don't know why, but it's just like that. The other thing is the stereotype that is within the families, that if your child, it's like if you can't go to abroad, that means there is something wrong with you, like you're weak academically, or like you're not as good as the other cousin or the family member. Parents generally talk about, hey, look at this, your cousin went there, or like he did this, he did that, he's now getting a job, he's in a respectable position. So I think there's a stereotype about you only stay in Nepal either if you're doing engineering in Pulchok or you're doing MBBS. Any other, you're just like you failed in education kind of thing. I'm not sure if this is for everybody, but I'm pretty sure there are some families who think going abroad is like the ultimate goal after 12th grade. The third thing about what I personally felt was the freedom to choose the subject and to follow a career path after it. So some of you could literally take any subjects and get a competitive salary. I mean, there is a growing trend of like musicians, rappers, YouTubers, and vloggers in Nepal as well, which is I guess a good sign. But at least when I was applying for colleges, it was either you have to be a doctor to get a good salary, you have to be a businessman, or very limited career paths, I guess, but it's slowly improving.
Thank you. I would like to move on to Neil Kamalji's question. Maybe Ankita or Apekshya would like to respond to this. If some of the panelists could share about the admissions requirements and some insights about their cohort groups to indicate if liberal arts education is not appropriate for certain kinds of students, it will help to understand the scope and limitations from the perspective of the student's point of view.
I can go. I think specific to Nepal, because the liberal arts model, at least the one in the US, is designed in a way that it can be, it is supposed to be the first step to a much more technical education. If you want to go into medicine or law or other careers, if you're bringing this system to Nepal, that is a problem. Because if you want to go into medicine, you have to go into medicine after +2. You can't do it. I mean, you could, but that's just not something that we do here. So I think for people who want, I think in the US, you could have a technical sort of career post liberal arts school, at least in law or medicine. I'm not sure if you are someone who wants to do medicine or law, it's worth your time to spend 4 years at a liberal arts school here in Nepal and then go to medical school or law school, particularly because both will not count as like postgraduate education in our market anyway. So I think for those people, it's worth sort of thinking about whether it's worth it.
Thanks, Apekshya.
About the admission requirements at AW, so I'll just go through the process that happens for admissions. So firstly, all the documents that the university asks for, your education background, you submit that, and then the university conducts a written examination first. So basic math, basic English, just those two. And then after the exam, and once you pass the written exam, and then you get called in for an interview. That's the first stage of the interview, and the interview is very interesting. Actually, I had never been to an interview like that, and I was very excited after the interview, actually, and it formed a kind of idea about what the university would be like after I took the interview. So there were questions like, if you had this much amount of money, what would you do with it? So I was given a small cup, a teacup, and said that, you use this cup for drinking tea, but what else could you use it for? So they were trying to see our range of thought and also our aspirations. And they asked us, like, if one of the major changes that happened, it could be political, social, any kind of change that happened in your life or in your country or in your community, and why was that important for you as a person? So questions like that made us really reflect back on ourselves, our families, our community, the country, and also, get very creative with our answers. So the interview was like that, and that kind of gave me an impression of what the university would be like later when I went in. So that's the first round of interview. And then they filter out who deserves a scholarship and who doesn't. And scholarship is based on your academics, first of all. And secondly, your family background and whether your family is financially able to support you or not, and whether you have a sponsor or not if you do not get a scholarship. So these are the questions they keep in mind. And we were asked to submit everything related to my family's finances. So what my family is involved in, our annual income, and how have my family been supporting my and my siblings' education so far. And if I did not get a scholarship, what means would I use to fund my education? So these are the kind of things that I kept in mind. And after that, there's a second round of interview because once you get in, the system of AUW is such that the first year that you go in is called Access Academy. So it's not included in your undergrad degree. It's the 1 year is basically preparing a student for the liberal arts education, because like I said, AUW has students from 16 different countries, and we've been following a very different education system in all our countries. So just to get us used to the model of AUW and used to the liberal arts model, we have this 1 year of Access Academy that prepares us for our undergrad. So the second round of interview is a little more tough, and the questions are more complicated and more critical. So that helps them decide whether the student can directly jump into undergrad or the student needs to take the Access Academy course for a year or not. So this is the process of admissions at AUW. And so for the second part of the question about what kind of liberal arts education is appropriate for certain students or not. So I have an example of a friend of mine from the same cohort. She was also studying for MBBS before she came into AUW. And she was quite determined that she wanted to pursue her education in MBBS or even a dentistry study if she could, but she really wanted the scholarship, the government scholarship. And if she did not get that, and she already had the AUW scholarship, so AUW scholarship was like a backup for her, but she really wanted to pursue a degree in medicines. So later, when she got accepted in the dentistry program, she left AUW and went into that. So, and then there were a few students who, after Access Academy and studying like the first semester of undergrad, they realized that, it was a lot for them. That's what they said, that this is too much for me. And they really wanted to concentrate just on one subject and be very particular about what they wanted to do in life. Like, even if it was economics, they wanted to just study economics and not be bothered with all the different writing courses, reading courses, and history classes and all of that. They found it a lot to take in. So yeah, these were the kind of students that left in between and did not continue the degree there. So I think for students who really want to pursue, they have a certain career in mind and they have a certain field in mind that they really want to pursue, and they feel like, doing these other different courses and exploring is not worth their time, or it's a lot of more pressure, added pressure for them while they're pursuing their majors. So maybe those kind of students would not really find the liberal arts program very helpful for them. It would kind of bring a distraction to their goal, I guess. But as for me, I really wanted to explore and I wanted to learn more, and I still do actually. So even if right now, if I'm given the option to take major electives from different fields, I would gladly do it. So for someone like me, it was great. But for someone who really wants to concentrate on only one subject, I think that would not, the program would not be fit for them.
Thank you so much for Ankita, for that. Ankita, I think that's something like really important, the orientation and the expectation of the student themselves. And I think it partly kind of does respond to what Apekshya was asking earlier, like what is the student need that you are fulfilling to a liberal arts program? I see in the comments, I see a hand raised by Rama Parajuri. Are you? Yes?
Sorry, that's me, Pratish.
Okay, I did guess that much.
Yeah. I want to thank all the 5 panelists for excellent presentations and the answers they've given to various questions. I finished college 34 years ago. I went to Brandeis, 84, 88, and then I went to UPenn for my PhD in economics. I dropped out of the economics program after 1 year and then became a historian. By the time I finished my history PhD, that was in 1996, I realized my liberal arts education at Brandeis had not been broad enough. So I wonder if any one of you now feel like your college education, liberal arts education was not broad enough, you know? So does anyone feel that way? And I have a particular question to Bibhushan. I am not somebody who would recommend folks to double or triple major. So 14 years after finishing college, do you feel like you tried to do too much by declaring 3 majors? I understand, I mean, you had to declare physics as a major because that's what you wanted to do. But instead of declaring math and philosophy as your second and third majors, do you now feel like you should have not finished all the major requirements, but even attempted a broader education, let's say courses in sociology, anthropology, music, what have you? That's it.
All right, let me jump right in. So I think there was only one point in my undergrad career when I felt like I'd made the wrong choice in actually declaring them as majors as opposed to just pursuing my broad interests. Because most of the time, I think I made the right decision and I wouldn't change it at all, because when you actually declare them as majors and you complete the requirements and you get the degree, right? It's on your CV and it's perceived to be something much better than just signing up for a bunch of different courses. So I think professionally, it helped a lot in terms of having a stronger track record and having a stronger CV and having perceived as having completed some level of rigor in all of these 3 disciplines. The only time I regretted doing this was when there was a physics course I really wanted to take, but I could not take it because there was a philosophy course I also had to take to finish my degree. And so I think that was the only time when I said, oh, why did I actually make it official? I could have just not done this, and then I would have been able to choose what I wanted to do. So I think there are pros and cons of everything. The pro being that when you actually sign up for a major, you make sure that you meet the minimum standards that the department requires for whoever is majoring in that field to become some level of an expert, which you don't get when you just go freestyle and just make your own package. The con being that then you are in a more restricted combination and that limits what you want to do. But I think the pros, at least for my program, far outweighed the cons.
Anybody else to the first question? Did you think your liberal arts education could have been much broader and in retrospect?
I would like to jump in for that. Maybe it's because of my university's issue, I would say, right now, because when I went to UW in 2014, the undergrad program was for 4 years. But then when in 2015, the program changed to only 3 years of undergrad and 1 year of Access Academy. And that limited us. So that limited us to the number of courses that we could take, because if we increase the number of courses, we had to stay longer, which we could not. Our scholarship did not let us do that. And also like I shared a little bit earlier, I wanted to minor in gender studies as well, because gender studies was one of the best courses I have taken so far. And I really wanted to minor in gender studies as well, but because of the time constriction, I could not take enough courses on gender studies to declare it as a minor. So I had to be stuck to just development studies as my minor. And like I took one course in mythology and I was fascinated because I did not know much about Norse mythology or Greek mythology. I just, from Marvel movies and other movies, those were the only references I had. But getting to learn about that in one course was really interesting, and I really wanted to take other courses based on mythology, religion, things like that. But I could not because of the same time constraint, and I had to complete my core courses and my requirements, and so only a few electives here and there I could manage. So yeah, I felt like during that time, I felt like it was not enough, and I wish I had one more year so I could take more electives and I could complete my gender studies minor. So maybe this is a problem very specific to my university and might not be the same for others. So yeah.
Anybody else would like to respond to Pratyush's question?
Maybe I can add one more thing, which is that
Yeah.
when you think about, right, whether your education was broad enough or not, we really also need to ask whether it is necessary for your formal education to be giving you that breadth, or whether you can get it on your own, right? Because whenever you sign up for a course that's interesting, usually you could have just read about it or watched videos or talked to people about it. So why would you want to take a course that is more formalized and more official rather than just learning about things on your own? And the answer to that is a lot of times, right, when a course is structured, then someone who is an expert in that field already distills the important parts and then presents them in a way that's more logical and better packaged for greater satisfaction or greater consumption. And that also applies to why you would sign up for a major rather than just taking a bunch of courses. And the answer to that is because then it's a more formally structured program designed by experts who know much better. And that usually gets you access to resources that you otherwise would have not gotten, right? Like, for example, for me, if I had not signed up for a major, then I would not have had an advisor. I would not have been invited to all these events that are designed only for majors that help them plan for careers in that field afterwards. So there are all these benefits to signing up for a formal course or a formal major that you would not get just by pursuing breadth in knowledge otherwise.
Thank you for that. I see James first.
Thank you, everyone, for the panel. It's been really interesting. I'd be interested to hear from the panelists, since you all talked a little bit about what, in terms of the structure of university and curriculum, would have attracted you to stay in Nepal. I would be interested to hear a little bit about what sort of student community you would be looking for in a Nepali university. For example, would a large cohort of undergrad or sort of international undergraduates be attractive to you, or would you want a lot of student-led groups or things like that? What would you be looking for there?
Anyone? Apekshya or Ranjanji, or
I think these questions might be meant more for you and Mona rather than us, right? Or equally so.
We want the student perspective here. Like I think that goes to Peter's question as well.
I can take a stab at it, but I think that's a difficult question to answer, because I don't think like what kind of student community I will get was necessarily a big part of my calculation when I was deciding to go. It was just something I found and I enjoyed, and I'm not entirely sure, if some other population would have discouraged me from going. I mean, I didn't really know what kind of population I was really getting into, but having been there, I do think, having an international population is it's a great learning experience. It's also a much better alumni network. I mean, we live in a global economy, so having friends and contacts around the world can never hurt you. And like, obviously, between a school that offers a global network versus one that doesn't, everything else equal, I think anyone would pick a globally connected network in the kind of world we live today. So I don't think it was a guiding point when I made a decision, but it's definitely like a great bonus.
Yeah, I would say it's not so much the social cohort that you probably have in mind, but I think you broadly end up with a group of broad-minded individuals, right? So this is really a question about what kind of people you get, and they can come from any sort of background or society. But I think what you're usually aiming for and end up with is a group of students who are more broad-minded and want to pursue a lot of different kind of questions or a broader approach to education. And actually, I would like to tie back to a previous question about admission requirements and what tells you whether the liberal arts program is not for a particular student, which is that in US colleges especially, right? So there's a set of criteria that you're judged on your application. the usual grades, standardized tests, letters of recommendation, CVs. But then there's this fifth element of the application, which I always found fascinating, which is a personal essay, right? Where you have to reflect on a personal experience, how you went through some kind of deep change in life. And year after year after year, I always see this, that there are two kinds of students, right? There's a group who's always fascinated by the idea of being able to write an essay and sharing something about themselves. And there's a second group who say, oh, why do I need to write this stupid essay? Why can't they just look at my grades? And this is usually a very clear division of who is going to benefit from a liberal arts education and who's not, I think.
Thanks. Shubhav, I saw your hand raised for a bit. Did you want to respond to James' question?
Yeah, I think I would prioritize on having like a diverse set of student background. For me, I think cultural differences and your answers and your thinking is it really depends on where you grew up, what people you were around with, and answer to any questions. Just the diverse student background that we had gave answers that I think I would have never thought about. And just hearing concepts from other cultures are also always fascinating. I used to share about cultures from Nepal, be it the good side or be it the bad side. I think that was something that was really valuable for me. That's why I pursued like a Spanish course, and I went to Spain to learn more about it. For me, it was a priority, I think, to have a diverse background.
Thanks. Rick, I see your hand raised.
Yes, I was, well, first I'll give you a little bit of my background. I'm currently a professor of neurobiology at Harvard Medical School, but I went many years ago, about 45 years ago now, to a small liberal arts school in Indiana called DePauw. And I was initially thinking that Peter's question was the right question, but now I think it's maybe not because of sampling bias. And the basic problem here, as I see it, is the five panelists are the cream of the crop. You are the kind of students that every college administrator all over the world would love to recruit to their campus, right? And I suspect that no matter how good a job all of the various committees do in setting up the University of Nepal, we won't be in a position early on, at least, to recruit students like you. And so I guess I'd like to sort of twist Peter's question a little bit and try to ask you to put yourselves in the shoes of your contemporaries who maybe had fewer options than you did, either because they had fewer financial resources or they weren't academic superstars. What sort of liberal arts and who don't, as a result, don't have the option of maybe going abroad to study? What sort of institution does one want to build for those students? Or it requires a little maybe imagination and thinking about your contemporaries.
Anybody would like to go for that question? Ranjanji, yeah.
That's, I think, thank you. That's a very tricky question, to be honest. I think if I put myself in my friends' shoes who stayed back in Nepal, there are a few things that really matters. It's not just about the kind of education they get. There are a few friends in my circle, they stayed in Nepal just because they wanted to hone their business in Nepal. You know, they had this, they had this really good, that ambition, business mentality, whereby they just, if they go abroad and study, like generally they had every grades they could have, and then they could get into possibility with really good universities, but then they chose to stay here. And then they had this thing that, okay, if I go abroad, I won't have that, close connection to business people here. And then they thought that, okay, right after A levels, they thought that, okay, this is my time right now, because if I start right now, by the time I'm 27, 28, I'll grow my business a lot. And that's exactly what happened right now. So we're 25, 26, like years of age, and the business has grown so much. Like they have even done a huge deal with so many corporates. And then I think for those people, it really suits to be in Nepal, right? So sometimes people might not emphasize more on education. They would, but like if you start balancing the business aspect and the education aspect, they might, like prioritize more on business. So for those people, I think it really suits in here, and which happen. And there are some students who did not go abroad because they got into good colleges, but then they did not get enough scholarship, right? So I think financial aspects matters a lot, to be very honest, especially from high school that I came from, like around 40% of them studied in scholarship since grade 4. So like for them, and they came from backgrounds that's an unimaginable backgrounds, whereby they hardly, their family hardly earned enough money to survive for a month or so. But then like it goes like paycheck to paycheck kind of thing, right? Not literally that, but like hard enough to like go on with light life. So like for those people, like Nepalese education is cheap compared to abroad, obviously, right? So for them it would be a good choice to stay here, right? So but then again, because of financial decision, there's also another thing, that because of financial decision they couldn't choose good quality education abroad, right? So right now, like simplest of simplest things lack among many students, not all of course, many students in Nepal, is like basic thing about citation is also something that you have to like teach them properly. And that's really sad, because when you join a liberal arts university, the first thing they teach you is in some courses, like how to write a paper, like how to write a research paper, how to write a research proposal, how to write a CV, how to write a cover letter, right? Those are the few basic things that they teach you in your first semester during your foundation courses, right? So like those kind of things also like really lack in some people here. Like, so I have both diverse range of friends who have inclined their position from 1 to 99 in business aspect, and some, like those people who could have done really well, did not get the education that they were supposed to get, but then like they're really far behind right now, despite the very fact that they have a huge potential, right? I think these are the few things that really matters. I hope I answered your question.
Anyone would like to? If not, I actually want to request Mona to actually share her reflections from her own experience.
Thank you, Bitsar, and UoNDB as well. It's nice to be on this side too. There are so many reflections I was going through as I heard the answers, and I'm just trying to pick out some of my
Mona, can I
I'm
just
sorry?
request you to hold your mic as you speak, because it keeps on making some noise. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much. It keeps happening. So some of the highlights, I try to keep it concise. First, I would like to respond to Rick, which is in interest of those who didn't go abroad. I would like to highlight that I was, before going to a US college, I attended, like Shubhav, an IB program in Canada. But before going there, I was able to attend a full year of 11th grade education. And that was very, very, in a way, it was very helpful for me to get a preview of where I would be if I got some higher education here. Of course, it's diverse here in Nepal, so there are options. But I was directly able to compare what it's like in Nepal, in some of the institutions, and abroad in an institution that is like a liberal arts college, although it was IB before liberal arts. So that's the timing since when I've been comparing a lot, and I really think that beyond the intended academic programs, the setups, I think there are a lot of unintended consequences of how liberal arts programs are structured that really made me who I am, which is by the structure, by the fact that we were able to have so many choices, I was pushed, and I was pushed not to have every single course with the same friends all over and over again. So I had to constantly push my social boundary and unless I made friends in a course, I didn't do well in that course. It wasn't by my interest. It was by the fact whether I had a good buddy in a class or not, right? So I have reflected a lot on how the social experience has shaped my academic or my college experience. Further, I think I am reminded of a friend who told me, this is not just your academics, that your university experience is much more than your academics. It's the professors you meet, it's the network you build. So I think that mindset has helped me even till date. Further, and in that, I think this has implications in how we shape our education here. So it's there's academics, there are structured programs, but how much a student is pushed to not just choose their courses, but also pushed in their boundaries to just seek and go and find and figure it out, right? That experience is something that I see massively missing here. So I don't think everything has to be expensive. I think we can be very creative, and some of the solutions are very, very kind of easy. For instance, even in the US or in the liberal arts colleges, all the professors are not available all the time to mentor and guide every student, but there is a system, there's a structure that is set up, which is that of teaching assistantship, which fortunately even I was able to go through. I did it in my final year of my undergrad, which normally you would do as a graduate student. So that allowed me to see that I could get that experience before I became an educator, a preview of what it's like to be a kind of in the space of the administrators and professors, but also not have to pay for it. Well, not without, even though for the professors not have to pay for it. Basically, they had the option to offer me credits rather than pay me for my hours, right? So university credits instead of paying me. So I feel like there are so many solutions in Nepal that are very easy. Some are very expensive, but some we can be really creative around. And further, I've always been a big cheerleader of the idea of teaching assistantship because I really see that missing here. And then one more point is just that I remember my college experience as being 50% of my time being outside the classroom and balancing my hours amongst different types of activities, not just one type. And among them, some of them were really required. So I would not be swimming if it was not required for me to pass my swim test. And I would not be dancing in my final, well, one of the semesters if I didn't have physical education was not required as a part of credit program. So there are extracurriculars, but there are also required extracurricular activities by the structure of the program. So yeah, these are some highlights beyond the many that many have shared here. And of course, happy to share more as I linger around longer.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Mona. We're actually just exactly 2 minutes past our scheduled time, but I just want to ask this one last question from Neil Kamal Tapagisi. He said, if time permits, but just very brief answers, would you have actually studied in Nepal if a similar program were actually, I see Apekshya has already answered that, if a similar program was actually offered by the university in Nepal, or would foreign experience be the key consideration? Very short answers to that question. If University of Nepal existed, would you have studied in Nepal? Shubhavji.
I think I would value more on the recognition of my education. The fact that even if I said it's a liberal arts college in Nepal, what if I wanted to apply for a PhD? Would that name have a brand value? I think it's something that I would think about, like, because these days, like, brand is almost everything. So I would doubt if, like, the name would carry the same weight as an institution in the US, I think.
So prospects for future education, but just to kind of counter to what you said, a lot of Nepali students have done their undergrad and graduate studies, and even in Trivandrum University and Kathmandu University have actually entered into very prestigious PhD programs all around the world. So yeah, I mean, but I do get your point. Prospect for further education, that is something that we do have to take into consideration. Anyone else?
I would say the foreign experience aspect is a big factor, but it is not a factor that cannot be overcome by other aspects.
Great, thanks.
Yeah,
Ankita-ji?
that's exactly what I wanted to add. Like, I think that question came earlier as well. If we had an international body of students here as well, would that enrich the program? I think definitely it would, because AW, I think the experience of AW is enriched more because of the variety of students that we have there from 16 different countries, like I mentioned earlier. The cultural exchange helps a lot in broadening your thought. And again, the empathy part comes from the different communities that we see inside AUW. So if University of Nepal existed at that time, but it did not provide me that that community of having students and professors from different parts of the world that would help enrich my learning. I think I would have chosen AUW instead of University of Nepal.
Thanks. I'm also reading Apekshya's message here. So thank you so much for sharing that. Anyone else? Nope. Any last thoughts before we end from the panel? Any last thoughts from the panel?
Maybe just a final thought, and in part in response to Rick's question. So when I think of my contemporaries, right, who are not fortunate enough to be having this option of going abroad, I think there is a huge population of students in Nepal who, for one reason or the other, cannot go abroad, but are still, I would say, scholars at heart, right? They want to explore, and they want to have a broad education and learn and question and have an intellectual experience beyond just having a vocational training that will land them in a good position when the time comes to get a job. And for this group of students, there's really nothing in Nepal that fulfills this need. And I would think of the University of Nepal as catering to this particular group of students more than anything else.
Thank you so much for that thought. Anyone else? Nope. I would like to now hand over to request actually Dr. Karki to give you thoughts, but I also want you to actually speak to a very important question that Apekshya asked earlier. What is the student need that University of Nepal aims to fulfill? And what is the demand in the market from employers that also University of Nepal wishes to fulfill? If you could also address that in your remarks, Dr. Karki.
Well, thank you, Aminaji. First of all, I very much appreciate your conducting this whole session in such a nice and productive manner. I also would like to take this opportunity to thank our panelists for sharing their very rich and rich perspective, and in a very honest and candid manner. That is precisely the reason why we wanted to hear your thoughts and feelings and ideas, because we have our group who have embarked on this project about 5 years ago, based on the sort of dissatisfaction, if you will, with the kind of existing model of higher education in Nepal. Given that we are situated in a very sensitive geopolitical situation, a very big, ambitious, powerful neighbor on the both sides. So unless and until we manage to produce, very thoughtful, competitive, creative group of critically thinking group of people in Nepal, both as a citizen as well as the leaders of this nation, I think and we feel that the future of Nepal could not be as bright as we think it should be. So for that, we need to have a very highly competent, creative, innovative and entrepreneurial people who are also committed to uplift this nation. I think this might sound very weird because this is what we discuss all the time among our group too. Our ideas sometimes, might sound very high, very idealistic, but we feel that if you go abroad and if you use Nepali passport, I think this country owes something to you, that this country expects something back from you. And this applies to me, this applies to many of us, my colleagues who have accomplished their education abroad. Some stayed longer, some stayed few years and came back. They could have chosen to pursue their career in those very countries, but they have decided that they got to give something back to the society where they come from. So this is a question of citizenship. This is a question of, being a leader, which Ankita has emphasized many a times in her sharing of her experience. So we would like to build this university, not just to add one more university per se, but this is going to be a university that would like to help nurture our young talents who are not only competent in their field of studies, but also have the commitment to engage in bringing the kind of change that this nation deserves. We believe Nepal deserves better. Had that not been the faith, our country would have gone in disarray long, long time ago. You might remember our ancestors preserved this nation when they fought with the British Empire to save the independence of this nation. And I think we have inherited that legacy and we got to carry it on. I mean, that is our thought. You don't necessarily need to agree what I'm saying, but we would like to be very honest and explain what we think about it. So, in democracy, as they say, we don't need to agree on everything. We are allowed to, especially because we are saying that we would like to pursue liberal education. So diversity is well accepted and we could live with that. To answer to the question that Apekshya raised, we have not yet done a very structured, systematically organized studies on the question of whether or not there is a demand in the market. But from the unstructured kind of interaction we have had with so many employers, different owners of the companies, different CEOs of the company, what they have been telling us pretty consistently, that when they open the position for certain categories of personnel, they get hundreds of applications. And when they go through this, when they scrutinize, if they shortlist maybe 10% or something like that, and when they call for an interview and start asking the real question, they go completely blank. They cannot answer. The only thing they know is, it sounds like they have gotten everything by heart in what is written in the textbooks they were advised to pursue. But when it comes to the question of analyzing the question or analyzing the situation and come up with some kind of proposition to address them, it's not there. So they were saying that what kind of graduates are we producing? Few weeks ago, I went to meet a senior official at the Lok Seva Ayog, this Public Service Commission, who is basically a body that scrutinizes people who would come to our government system. And I asked the same question, because you have the responsibility to scrutinize and select the best who come through your process? Are you satisfied with their competence, with their performance, and with their ability to handle the kind of challenges that our administrative system faces? And they say, without any hesitation, no. So these are, again, a very anecdotal kind of a thing. We are Aminaji, and we are talking about undertaking a structured kind of a research to validate whether these anecdotes really is reflective of the reality. But at this point in time, we haven't done that, but we think we need to do that. We feel that given the changing nature of the job, given the changing dynamics of the labor force, and given the kind of scenario globally, there is a need for any citizens who would be living and coping with the 21st century to have a broad-based education, in a very, not like in the silos, in a very compartmentalized fashion, and that is what is in existence today. But at the same time, we also need to empower our youngsters to have acquired many critical generic skills. Like critical thinking is one of the skills that we cannot afford not to equip our students with. Similarly, the spirit of entrepreneurship, the spirit of innovation, the spirit of communication skills, writing your thoughts and feeling in a logical, in a evidence-based manner that gives you a origin, a certain clear perspective on your thinking. If you go today, as you all know, if you ask people to write even a single page essay or note or whatever you say, they will start sweating. So there is a big gap in what it is today, the situation as it exists today, and the kind of aspiration that we have. We are aware of the many challenges, many of which you have so eloquently highlighted. And they are facts, they are reality. We are not denying that. But before the Edmund Hillary reached the summit, the mountain Everest was supposed to be, insurmountable. Nobody could reach there. But once they reached it, they break the record. Now everyone is now, hundreds and hundreds of people have reached the summit. So it is a matter of faith. It is a matter of determination. It is a matter of commitment. And come what may, we shall pursue this. And we shall make sure that the University of Nepal would come to fruition, as many of you have said earlier, adding, if, rest assured, it will come to fruition. And we expect the goodwill and help and cooperation and contribution from people like yourself. And if you have somebody in your network who would like to contribute in whatever way they can, primarily in the field of education, primarily in the field of knowledge transfer, skills transfer, the technical know-how is what is absolutely necessary to make this university a top quality university in Nepal. And that is why we are collaborating with so many colleagues that you have seen on the screen today. Rick, he has introduced himself. Earlier, there was Peter Keller, who is the professor from the Simon Fraser University in Canada. So it's Bruce you have seen his name here, who used to work in the University of Victoria in Canada. So we have many colleagues that we feel so privileged to have the contact, relationship, collaboration, and when our foreign friends are so interested and have a trust, have a faith in the worthiness of this project, I cannot imagine our young talents living abroad and pursuing their career would not be interested to promote this project, to bring it to a reality and something that we all could be proud of, and this will serve the generation of our youngsters in the time to come. So I think once again I would like to thank you all for sharing your very true conviction, your perspective in a very genuine and candid manner that would help us a lot to take into consideration as we plan our programs and other stuff as we move with this agenda. And so please feel free if you haven't if you have forgotten to say something that you think are important. Aminaji is there. You could share it, and we shall take them very seriously. Not that we will be able to implement everything that you said in the first time, because this is a gradual process. As you know, Rome was not built in a day, right? So we do not claim that we will be the world-class university on day one, but that is our aim. We shall build it gradually, and that is where we would like to reach at. So once again, thank you so much. And I would like to see such conversation and interactions in the future as well. And once again, thank you, Aminaji, for moderating this very valuable and productive meeting today.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Karki. For those of you who may not know, but I don't think there's anyone who doesn't know, Dr. Arjun Karki is the chair of the University of Nepal Development Board. Thank you so much, Dr. Karki. Thank you to all the panelists. Thank you so much, Mona and Prabhakar, who've been really helpful in organizing and putting together all of this. Thank you everyone for attending. I saw a question from Shubhav. I just wanted to quickly address that as well, but also share a thought I had on that comment that kind of stood out for me, the allegation of being a jack of all trades and master of none. I think to kind of defend that comment, the way I have understood a liberal arts program and the way I've envisioned the program for University of Nepal, it's not a mastery of content, but mastery of competency. And it's the competencies that we seek to kind of build in our students, the ones that Dr. Kaki just talked about. I come from the pragmatist school of thought. So in today's world, we live in what they call a knowledge-based economy. So the content gets, if some of them probably last longer, but the skills like being how to work in a collaborative way, how to be creative, critical thinking, problem solving, even how to frame a problem, identify a problem, and just not look at it from an insular way, but just look at it from a more interdisciplinary to kind of understand and grasp the complexity of the problem itself. I think those kinds of qualities are what we hope to inculcate, hope to grow in the students. And I can see that happening in all of you. You definitely have mastered some of those, the way you've carried yourself. And from what little I know of your professional careers right now, you do have embodied these qualities that have mastering is a big word. It's a lifelong process, but I think that's the main thing, is to learn to become a lifelong learner, and that you can adapt to any situation you may come across in the world. And I think that's one of the most vital skills that we need for today. I see Dr. Karki's hand raised. Dr.
I just would like to say that I had the privilege of establishing 2 other institutions in the past. I started the first medical school in the year 2000 in the Kathmandu University, right after I returned from the United States. And then later I helped build another institution called Patton Academy of Health Sciences. That is a kind of a health sciences university. So I'm very familiar with the pains, with the challenges, with the constraint of building institutions. So the good thing is the lessons that I have learned, and there are many colleagues of mine who have their own unique experiences in building the institution. I think putting that together gives us the confidence that we will realize our goal. That's all I wanted to say. Aminaji, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Kaki. Before I leave, I just had one last thing to say, to a request to the panelists. We will keep in touch with you, and we will definitely have to reach out to you for further consultations as we're in the process of coming to a decision of what will be the programs we offer in the first few years. And once we pin that down, we probably will have to seek advice in these respective major fields. For instance, if we decide to have a major in economics, we'll probably have to reach out to Shubhavji and Ranjanji to kind of get insights of what is it like to major in economics, and go into the nitty-gritty of that particular program. I see a comment. Just the last point about Shubhavji, how inclusive will the university be? Inclusion and diversity and equity, these three words, we do have that in our documents, and it's something that we have to talk about. We have talked about it, but from an administrative point of view, the ethos is there, but how practical it would be, there are certain decisions that need to be made. There is a movement, at least at Kathmandu University, there is these strategic decisions being made where subsidizing local students by trying to reach out to international students, where you have a tiered fee structure. So in that case, we might have to also consider that. But these are decisions we have not made yet. So while inclusion is a philosophy, that ethos that we are aspiring to, how it will look in practice is yet to be seen. But yet, nevertheless, in terms of inclusivity within the context of Nepal, reaching out to as a diverse population as possible, making sure that we can also make it affordable and accessible to a wider population. I think that's something that we have to really seriously think about. And there's always, of course, as many of you have highlighted, doing a liberal arts program is a very expensive business. So we also have to think about the cost thing. So how it will actually look in practice is yet to be seen. So with that, I want to thank you for staying an extra half an hour. We've gone way beyond the time. So thank you so much. Thank you for everyone in the audience for being here today, and good night. Have a good day. Those of you who are starting out, namaste.
Or good morning.
Yeah.
Thank you again to all the panelists. You were wonderful.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.